All right, your Pitt Panthers are finally heading back home after a long time away from home. Pitt is coming back to the Petersen Events Center tonight when the Panthers will host Eastern Kentucky for a 7 o'clock tip-off. So you got that to look forward to. You finally get a chance to see Pitt play basketball in person, again, for the first time in a long time. I mean, it's been a while since we've seen this Pitt basketball team. They've gone on the road, played 5 games away from home, which is not an easy thing to do, and I actually meant to look it up before this. I can't imagine. I can't think there are too many power conference teams doing that right now or who have done that. And the reality is that, if you could go through a whole season, and you likely would go through most seasons without playing 5 consecutive games away from home. Certainly, if you get to the postseason, you'd like to find yourself in position to play 5 games in a row away from home. But during the regular season, non-conference or conference, you're not going to have that. You're certainly not going to have it on the conference schedule, and most teams won't willingly choose to put their schedule together like that to have 5 games away from home in a row. Now, of course, one of these was chosen for Pitt. The Virginia Tech game, the ACC put that on the schedule for the Panthers, so Pitt can thank the ACC for that, sending them on the road, right at the tail end of what was a 4-game, we'll call it a 4-game road streak, which is ultimately what it was. I know 2 of the games were technically not road games. They were played in the Greenbrier tournament, which counts as a neutral court, but it's away from home. So, we might as well count it or call it a road game. And you hope, and you like to think that when it comes down to it, when we get to March and this team is, has built its case for the NCAA tournament, if it finds itself somewhere near the bubble, you'd like to think that the sheer nature, the sheer fact that Pitt played 5 games in a row away from home in late November, early December benefits the team, benefits the resume. They went 3-2 in that stretch. Obviously 4-1 or 5-0 would be much better. But I think 3-2, a winning record in 5 consecutive games away from home at this point in the schedule is a pretty positive thing. We talked about this on Monday. Not a lot of teams doing that, and it's not easy to do. I don't think it's easy to do at any point, unless you're in the NCAA tournament. But to do it here at this point in the schedule, playing some quality opponents. Opponents of varying quality. We'll see what Ohio State ends up being. We'll see what Mississippi State ends up being. I think Mississippi State will be a pretty good team. We'll see about Ohio State. We'll see about Wisconsin. We'll see about Virginia Tech. And of course, LSU being the other team that they played there. I blanked. I was like, wait, that's 4 teams. Who was the 5th team they played? It was the first team they played. It was LSU. We'll see what all those teams end up doing, and obviously those teams' outcomes will have a lot to do with how Pitt's resume looks. But the sheer fact of Pitt going on the road for 5 games like this, it's got to be worth something. And I think the committee has to look favorably upon it to say, you know what? Credit to you guys. You really went out and challenged yourself. And they didn't play, Kansas and UConn for 5 games or anything like that. But they went out and challenged themselves. They put themselves on the road. They took themselves on the road and went through the rigor. You know what I mean? Or the ringer, I should say. Tested the rigors of the ringer. And came out of it with 2 losses, but still challenged themselves. And I think that's good for the team developmentally, and it should be good for the team and their NCAA tournament resume. Now they're coming home to face Eastern Kentucky, the Colonels, or some might pronounce it Colonels. Most people who know how to read would pronounce it Colonels, but I don't know why it's spelled Colonels. But anyway, I know that's historically how it's spelled. It's just weird that we've turned Colonel into Colonel. But anyway, the Colonels are 5-4. They lost to Clemson in the game, a game against an ACC opponent. Excuse me. They lost to Clemson. They lost to Ball State, Louisiana Tech, and Troy. They bounced back from a 2-game losing streak by beating Campbellsville Harrodsburg or something like that, 98-62. An interesting matchup, I think, for Pitt tonight. And we'll talk what the Colonels are bringing to the Petersen Events Center. I think there's 2 ways to look at this game tonight. One is just what will it take to win? What do you need to do to beat Eastern Kentucky? How can you emerge victorious, improve to 9-2, and set yourself up to finish the non-conference schedule with only 2 losses, or this full ACC. I hate that the ACC puts that orphan game in there. I hate that the ACC puts that game in there because we can't just say the non-conference schedule. because there was a conference game in there. And we can't say before they start the ACC schedule because they already started it. And so you have to say things like, well, the non-conference schedule plus that one-off against an ACC opponent, or, the full conference schedule. It's so annoying. Because as I was about to say it there, so they can finish 10-2 in the non-conference. They weren't actually 10-2 in the non-conference. They played 11 non-conference games, so they're only scheduled to play 11 non-conference games. So they would only be 9-2, but they have that one other game hanging out there, that ACC game. But anyway, there's two ways to look at this game tonight. One is what Pitt needs to do to beat Eastern Kentucky, just to get win number 9 and give themselves a chance to beat Sam Houston or whoever it is next Saturday. I think that game's on the 21st, to win that game and get to 10-2 heading into 2025 in the full ACC schedule, the 19 games of it that remain. So that's one way to look at it. We'll look at it that way. But the other, angle is, all right, you came off this 5-game road trip. You've got 2 games left in the non-conference. What do you really need to focus on and dial in over these final 2 non-conference games to get ready for the real meat of the schedule? And those 19 ACC games that are lurking there right after this, starting on New Year's Day with a 2:00 game against, who are they playing? Cal or somebody like that. So there's 2 sides. What do you need to do to win? And what do you need to do to set yourself up for the rest of the season? What are the biggest things they need to work on? We're going to cover both sides here on the Morning Pit. Get you ready for tonight's game on the Wednesday edition of the Morning Pit right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Yeah, as you might have imagined, we will not have a live Panther-Lair show tonight. We won't be doing a live stream tonight since there is a Pitt basketball game that starts at 7 o'clock. I'll be at the Petersen Events Center to cover it, and we'll have lots of coverage from there. But we won't do a live stream tonight because, well, there's a basketball game. And, obviously that's a bit of a conflict. So we're going to move it to tomorrow night. Shouldn't have too many more of these Wednesday night conflicts. I think this is about it. I don't think there's any ACC games on Wednesdays. But we'll look ahead at the schedule and make adjustments if we need to. We adjusted last week because the Mississippi State game started at 9:15. We all had to stay up very late to watch that drubbing. And then we have to adjust tonight because Pitt plays this game on Wednesday night. Oh, I guess, is New Year's Day a Wednesday? Might be. Yeah, New Year's Day is a Wednesday. So there's another Wednesday game. And we might but that's an afternoon game, but we might just have to adjust that anyway because who wants to do it live stream on New Year's Day? We might move it. But anyway, we're going to do this week's live stream tomorrow night, 8:30 p.m. right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. We'll be live to talk about the Pitt Eastern Kentucky game, talk about the latest from the transfer portal, and everything else going on in the world of Pitt sports. So mark your calendars for that. We will be live tomorrow night at 8:30 p.m. right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. And if you want to make sure you don't miss the live stream or any of our exclusive Pitt video content, like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. We're closing in on 4,500 subscribers. I'd love to get to 10,000 someday, but 4,500 would be a pretty cool number. I only need a few more of you to click the subscribe button and we'll hit 4,500. That would be pretty sweet. So if you could do it right now, it's not going to take that much effort. And look, if you're just listening to the podcast, you just listen to the audio podcast, I mean, we're giving you this podcast for free. The least you can do is go over to YouTube and click subscribe at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. We put if you're watching the video, the subscribe button's right down there. We make it very easy for you. If you're not watching the video, if you're just listening to the audio podcast, you got to go to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com and click the subscribe button. So do that for me. I appreciate it. And we'll keep putting these out there for you. All right. So Eastern Kentucky, interesting matchup. It's an interesting matchup for Pitt. It's a game they should win. As we said, the Colonels are 5-4. They lost to Clemson. They lost to Troy and Ball State. I mean, this is a game that Pitt should win. I don't know what the line is. It doesn't matter. But I think there's some interesting angles to this. There's some matchup things that I think make this game kind of interesting because Eastern Kentucky does some things that I think will not necessarily give Pitt problems, but could create some interesting challenges for Pitt, I guess I would say. And there's really 2 things that stand out to me with Eastern Kentucky, and it's 3-point shooting and it's turnovers. Eastern Kentucky likes to call itself or think of itself as, what do they call themselves, the most exciting 40 minutes in basketball, because they want to fire a lot of 3-pointers. They want to score a lot of points, and they're going to get a lot of steals. And to that end, this team is, I think, I have the stats in front of me here. What side am I looking at? Oh, opponent turnovers. They are top 20 in the nation in forcing opponent turnovers. Eastern Kentucky is, and they are 3-point attempts per game is the other stat I wanted to look at. They are top 40 in the country in 3-point attempts per game. They have played one game fewer than Pitt, and they've attempted more 3-pointers than Pitt has. They want to fire up threes. They're not necessarily very good at hitting them. They're hitting a lower percentage than Pitt is. Pitt's only shooting like 32%. I want to say Eastern Kentucky is shooting like 31%, but they will fire away from three. They are also very good at getting offensive rebounds. Again, they've played one fewer game than Pitt, and they have more offensive rebounds than the Panthers do. They're actually one of the, among the best in the nation at offensive rebound percentage. This is another stat that I had open, but I flipped over to defensive rebounding percentage, bringing up the offensive rebounding percentage. Eastern Kentucky is top 45 in the country in offensive rebounding percentage. So you have a team that fires a lot of threes, they get a lot of offensive rebounds, and they like to get a lot of steals. This is very interesting to me. It's a very interesting matchup. Pitt is decent defensive rebounding. They're better offensive rebounding, or they're better defensive rebounding percentage than Eastern Kentucky. Eastern Kentucky is not very good. They're outside the top 300 in defensive rebounding percentage, so there should be an opportunity for Pitt to get second chance points and offensive rebounds and all that. But this is a team in Eastern Kentucky that, despite not having a lot of size, they're getting a lot of offensive boards. And I think part of that might be due to the shots that they're taking. When they fire that many three-pointers, I think the team leader in offensive rebounds is a 6'6" wing. And sometimes when you shoot a lot of three-pointers, you get a lot of those longer rebounds, and so your guards and wings are going to have more opportunities. I think their biggest guys that play a lot are like 6'8", maybe 6'7", so not a ton of size, but they're getting a lot of offensive rebounds, probably on long rebounds off of missed three-pointers, which then turn into another opportunity to shoot another three, which I think is what they like to do. They get a lot of steals, so they're going to try and get down the court and pull up and hit the trailer for a three, or just pull up and try and hit a three in transition or fast break three. This is the kind of game they like to play, and I like this as a matchup for Pitt because, one, the Panthers are averaging 10 turnovers per game. Not a bad number. It's been a little bit worse in the last few games. They've had 55 turnovers in the last 5 games, so they're averaging 11 in the last 5. They've had 34 turnovers in the last 3 games, so there's a little bit more happening recently turnover-wise, and you'd like to see that get under control. Now they're going to play against a team who is pretty good at getting turnovers, so there's a kind of an interesting challenge there for Pitt to really emphasize ball security and not give Eastern Kentucky those turnovers that they're going to be going for. You know what I mean? That they're going to be reaching and trying to grab. And then Pitt's defense on the perimeter. Panthers haven't been bad defending the perimeter. I think they've been okay defending the three, but this is a team that's going to shoot and shoot and keep shooting and keep shooting, whether they're making them or not. And if you happen to catch them on the night where they are making them, then you're going to be really in for a challenge. If the team that loves to shoot threes starts hitting threes, and again, they're not shooting a great percentage this season, but if tonight happens to be the night where the shots are going down, now you're going to be in for a little bit of a fight, particularly if you're turning the ball over, if you're sloppy with the ball. So an interesting matchup, still one that Pitt should win. A kind of, I don't want to call it a get-right game because they beat Virginia Tech, although they didn't necessarily look right in that game. But they come back home, play in the Petersen Events Center again. They get the home crowd of whatever is going to be there tonight. And against a team that they should beat, maybe an opportunity to sort of settle in and kind of reestablish themselves, find their footing again. And it felt like at points on that road trip, they were kind of anchorless. Losing Damian Dunn is a part of that. Ishmael Leggett having some struggles. Jalen Lowe having some struggles here and there. Neither guy really coming alive until the end of the Virginia Tech game. It's not... They felt kind of, like I say, unanchored, unmoored. They're trying to, I think, figure out who they are and how they want to play. And that, I think, sort of segues into what they can work on and what they can focus on and emphasize tonight. And and going forward, in this the other non-conference game they had before they hit the ACC, I think there are rotation questions for this team to sort of figure out. And tonight's game should provide an opportunity to work through some of those. Where are you going to play Zach Austin? You're going to get more minutes at the 3 where he started in the Virginia Tech game, or are you going to get him more minutes at the 4 where he's gotten some time? What are you going to do with Guillermo Diaz-Graham? You're going to keep him in the starting lineup at the 4? You're going to rotate him more with Cam Corrin at the 5? How are you going to divvy up his minutes? And there's more questions beyond that, and we'll get to the guys beyond that. But with those two in particular, Zach Austin and Guillermo Diaz-Graham, because their fates seem to be somewhat linked. And really you could throw Cam Corrin in as well. If one of those two centers, let's be honest, they're both centers, right? I mean, Guillermo and Cam Corrin are two centers. And so if one of those centers runs into foul trouble or gets hurt or has to come out of the game, now you have an easy solution. One of them plays center and Zach Austin plays the 4. Simple. Easily resolved. But if both of them stay healthy, stay on the court, stay out of foul trouble, like was the case in the Virginia Tech game, now you're trying to fit Austin in more at the 3, which is okay for now because you don't have Damian Dunn back. Once Damian Dunn comes back, he pops up on the screen just as I say that, that's perfect timing. Once he comes back, there are going to be fewer minutes available at the 3 because he's going to be on the court a lot along with Jalen Lowe and Ishmael Leggett. At which point, I think if you're going to get Zach Austin more time, you're going to need to use him at the 4, in which case you're going to need to be splitting more between Guillermo Diaz-Graham and Cam Corrin. So what becomes of Papa Conti, right? Papa Conti came in the Ohio State game, looked great, hasn't really done much other than lose a contact in the last 2 games. I think he still merits consideration, maybe at the bottom of the rotation, but consideration in the rotation. Now, if you find yourself, particularly once Dunn comes back, but even before that, if you find yourself using Zach Austin more at the 4 and rotating Guillermo and Cam Corrin at the 5, then there's not as much space for Papa Amadou Kanté. There's not as much space for him to get on the court and fit in because those minutes are going to be eaten up by the 2 veteran centers. Which is unfortunate because I think he showed that he can contribute. And there's 3 guys in particular that I think really need to make the most of this opportunity tonight and the game against Sam Houston. And they need to be given an opportunity, and then they need to capitalize on it. It's Papa Amadou Kanté, it's Brandon Cummings, and it's Amsal Delilich. Now, I didn't put those guys in the right order of priority in terms of who can capitalize on opportunities here. I didn't put those guys in order of priority of how far along they are. Brandon Cummings is the furthest along. Amsal Delilich is behind him. Papa Amadou Kanté is after him. In terms of development, how far they are, how ready they are to be a part of the rotation. Brandon Cummings was getting minutes when Damian Dunn was in. He got even more when Dunn was out. Understandably, he became the 3rd guard. And I don't think he looks entirely out of place. I think Brandon Cummings looks like he can play and should be on the court and getting minutes. But these 2 games are a chance for him to really lock in and get comfortable on the court, find his role, find how he fits in, find his shot, find out what he can do, and just get a little bit of confidence before the calendar changes and the schedule toughens up a little bit. Ditto for Amsal Delilich. I think there needs to be a concerted effort to get him the ball. And maybe when Damian Dunn comes back and you've got all 4 guards going, plus Zach Austin, plus the 2 centers, maybe there aren't that many minutes for a guy like Delilich anyway. But I think in these 2 games, you need to find out if he's a guy who can really help you once you get into the ACC schedule. And you're not going to make a final verdict on that, but I think they need to get him the ball. There's too many times that they have possessions on the court and he's just standing in the corner. And maybe he needs to move around more, but he's standing in the corner by himself, not really getting guarded all that closely. And when that's the case, you've got to get the ball to him. Jalen Lowe, Ishmael Leggett, Brandon Cummings, Zach Austin, whoever's got the ball, you need to find 52 and give him an opportunity to make a play. The potential's there. There are times when he looks lost. Not lost, but just sloppy. That he's not able to drive the way he could in Bosnia and Herzegovina. The defenders are a little bit quicker, a little bit longer. They get their reach can do a little bit more than the guys that he was playing against in Europe. But I think he'll figure that stuff out. He's just got to get an opportunity. There's just too many offensive possessions where he just stands in the corner and then runs back up the court on defense. He needs to be better. He needs to be more consistent, but he needs to get that opportunity. And I think he needs, you got to get the ball to him. Let him take shots. Let him show that he can be a contributing factor on this team. Because I think he can. I still believe he can. But I just don't think the ball's not coming to him enough. And then the other one is Papa Amadou Kanté. I think these two games you need to give him an opportunity in these two games to get more comfortable on the court. So you're not trying to wedge minutes in for Kanté or Delilich once you get to the ACC schedule. You got to play these guys, and I think you got to play them real minutes. And if it doesn't work, then okay, you've solidified it. Conti's not going to be in the rotation with Guillermo and Cam Corrin. But if it does work, and he does show that he can do something, that he can contribute and be a part of this team on both ends of the court, then you've got someone else you can use. And that gives you more opportunities in the rotation. That gives you more chances to kind of spread the ball around, to give different looks. The energy he brought against Ohio State was really impressive, and impactful. You need to make the most of that. You need to do something with it and use it, Ideally, you could come out of these two games feeling like you've got your top 5 guys, top 6 guys. Let's say Damian Dunn comes back not too long into January. Let's say you've got your top 6 guys of Dunn and Lowe and Leggett and Austin and Guillermo and Corrin, and then you've got 3 guys behind them of Cummings, Delilich, and Kanté. And, if you have that, now you're going 9 deep. That's a 9-man rotation. You'd like to get to January 1st with a pretty concrete idea of whether your rotation is going to be 9, is going to be 8, or is it going to be 7. I think it'll be at least 7. I think it'll be that main 6 I talked about plus Cummings. These 2 games are a chance in what should be a low-pressure situation to find out what Delilich and Kanté can do. And so, a couple things we're looking for out of tonight. One, how does Pitt defend the 3 against a team that likes to shoot a lot of 3s? 2, how does Pitt protect the ball against a team that gets a lot of turnovers? 3, how does Pitt rebound on the defensive end, against a team that gets a lot of offensive rebounds? And then 4, what kind of roles do Amsal Delilich and Papa Amadou Kanté have? How much do they play? How many opportunities they get? And what do they do with those opportunities? So this may look like a sleepy penultimate non-conference game to you, but I think there's a whole lot going on in this game and a whole lot that's interesting to watch and a whole lot that I think we'll be able to take from it. So I'm looking forward to it. I think you probably are too if you're a Pitt basketball fan. And certainly we'll talk about it tomorrow night on the live stream. Don't forget, we will be live tomorrow night right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com for the Panther-Lair show, 8:30 p.m. on a Thursday night, just to mix it up a little bit. And you can tune in for that with your comments and questions. We can talk about Pitt basketball, talk about the transfer portal, Pitt football, the game above Sports Bowl against Toledo, which, sure, we've got tons of things to say about that, I assure you. Whatever you want to talk about in Pitt sports, we will be talking about it tomorrow night on the Panther-Lair show. So tune in with your comments and questions. We'd love to hear from you. And then, of course, stay tuned right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com for all of our Pitt video content. And check out the website Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. Like this video, subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Help us get up to that 4,500 subscriber mark. That would be really cool. And yeah, have a great Wednesday. Enjoy the basketball game tonight. We'll have lots of coverage at Panther-Lair.com, and we will catch up with you tomorrow morning for the Morning Pit right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.